Okay, so this is a video on extract 22. It's from Act 4, Scene 2, or we call it the Sir Topas scene. So what's prepared us for this moment? So just an overview, this is the scene where Feste, instructed by Mariah, dresses up in a priest's gown and beard and puts on an accent and torments Malvolio in his prison where they've locked him for believing he's mad, while Sir Toby and Mariah look on. Okay, so what's important is what's prepared us for this moment. So obviously Malvolio's behaviour, Feste's involved in this part, so particularly what he says to Feste and about Feste to Olivia in Act 1, Scene 5. The trick itself prepares us for this, and the moment where Malvolio appears in his yellow stockings cross-gartered. And this is the aftermath of the trick. So Olivia has said to Toby to have a special care of this fellow Malvolio, and Toby has obviously taken that a step too far and locked the presumably mad or possessed or bewitched Malvolio in a darkened room. Basically, he's imprisoned him. And the question here from critics is this a step too far? Does this take the joke too far? Perhaps Shakespeare didn't intend it to be taken that way by his audiences, but of course there's always the possibility that modern audiences are more sympathetic to Malvolio and see this as a pretty stringent punishment for his arrogance and conceit. And this, the term we use for this, laughing at somebody's misfortune and laughing at somebody's downfall, is Schadenfreude, okay? And what's really important about this is that we are revisiting this theme of the audience being, the audience as spectators being in on the joke. So there's a lot of dramatic irony in this play. We know a lot that the players don't know, sorry, that the characters don't know. So we know that Viola is not Cesario, and not a man but a woman. We also are allowed to be in on the joke with Mariah, Sir Toby, Fabian and Feste, and we're allowed to watch that as they are an onstage audience at different moments in time, watching this trick play out like a mini play within a play. I've just written something here as well, which is, this is there's a lot of meta theatricality in this play. So acting a part within the play, the disguise, lots of references to things like I am not that which I play. Viola says it, Olivia says it, and of course, pretty much everyone plays a bit of a role throughout. So what does the moment prepare us for? Well, it prepares us for the end when Malvolio is released and he berates Olivia for setting him up and sending him a letter, which of course we then realise, or Olivia then realises, is Mariah's doing. And then the lack of a real resolution for Malvolio or for the subplot. He vows revenge on them and he's learnt nothing. He just wants to get his own back. Okay. So let's start from the beginning. I'm not going to read it all, so if you want to pause the video right now and read it for yourself, then that's a good idea. So there is only a couple of lines before this extract, and they are Mariah's lines instructing Feste to put on the gown and the beard so that he can trick Malvolio further and tease him and torment him. And the staging, we're told earlier that Toby says we'll have him in a darkened room and bound. So it's just worth thinking about, how was this staged in versions that you've seen? The Globe version, the national version, which I hope you've all watched now this week, and also the Emma Rice version, which is the later Globe version. So how did they do it in those? So just to remind you, it's Mariah who's given Feste the instruction to dress like this. So she is still directing the trick. She is still involved in it. And also the stage direction here, which is not, it comes from Sir Toby earlier, that Malvolio is in dark and dream and bound. And we see this all the way through, by the way, that's what's happening. We do start to wonder, why does he need the gown and the beard if Malvolio can't see him? So again, it's very much about acting a part, playing a role. Just to bring your attention to the first joke that Feste makes, and again, something that is, you know, appealing to audiences. It's making a joke that's often made about the church, pointing out their hypocrisy. And so it's very typical to satirize that hypocrisy at the time. So he makes that joke there. This is all Feste on stage alone as well. And then Sir Toby enters with Mariah, who re-enters, having set up the joke. And Toby immediately is complicit in the joke by naming Feste as Master Parson. And then we get Feste, who's just gone on about not being a good scholar or being a good student. Basically, his jokes here are pretty much about priests, and perhaps even sort of the actor who originally played him himself was not actually very tall. He was kind of known for his dwarfishness. So just kind of in jokes here that the audience would have understood. And he makes a joke here, Buenos dias, which is either bad Latin or bad Spanish. Either way, it's in keeping with this satire here about priests and their poor learning. And then you might remember from earlier in the play, he makes a comment about a made-up philosopher called Quinapolus. And this is, again, all very similar to what he's doing here, mocking logical reasoning. So he's pretending to be logical and reasoned, but in fact, he's just making fun of that. And then Sir Toby sends him forward to Malvolio, who presumably it says here within, so it means that perhaps he's not on the stage, but, you know, lots of productions do it where he is on the stage and he's in a prison. You might remember mine, where we had Malvolio wheeled in a trolley with a blindfold on. And Feste says, "What ho, I say, peace in this prison." And presumably this is with an accent disguising his voice. Mariah makes note of it later that he disguises his voice, so that's built into the dialogue. And this kind of peace in this prison is what priests say when they're visiting the sick, or they say peace in this house, but of course Malvolio is in fact in a prison. Highlighting there to us, is this a bit uncomfortable? We are now spectators with Sir Toby and Mariah, who form an onstage audience for Feste's play acting here. Are we happy that we're part of their gang, or are we feeling uncomfortable at this point because it feels a bit too far? Okay. And we get here Feste continuing the line that Malvolio is mad. So he's Sir Topas the curate who comes to visit Malvolio the lunatic. So he's perpetuating this idea that's been created by the other trio earlier. Sir Topas, good Sir Topas, go to my lady. So it's this glimmer of hope at first for Malvolio. So we get this Malvolio being like, someone's come to save me, someone can help me. And immediately we get this language of exorcism again, dashing all of Malvolio's hopes out. Hyperbolic fiend, how vexest thou this man? Talkest thou nothing of ladies? And so we get the joke here, where Malvolio has said, go to my lady, we then get Feste picking up on the previous idea that Malvolio has this uncontrollable sexual passion for Olivia, and so he's playing on that ambition that Malvolio had. And we just get a reminder that Sir Toby and Mariah are there. I mean, if you were watching this, you'd be able to see that, just forming part of another onstage audience that we've seen numerous times in the play so far. So the idea of disguise and playing a role is very, and being a spectator is very much embedded in this scene. And then we get Malvolio complaining about the darkness. And Feste says, "Fie, thou dishonest Satan, I call thee by the most modest terms, for I am one of those gentle ones that will use the devil himself with courtesy." So exorcists were known for their abuse of demons and for their really hard language during an exorcism, and Feste's playing this rather polite role. And that's interesting because it kind of fits this polite master-servant relationship that we've got permeating the whole play, where Cesario is super polite to Orsino, etc. And the language is all very tentative and courteous. So then we get this whole bit here and on the next page where they start to talk about the dark house which Malvolio is being kept in. And Feste teases him something rotten. He says, "Why, it hath bay windows," which was sort of fashionably large windows that let in a lot of light, "transparent as barricados." A barricade is not transparent. So there's lots of oxymorons going on here. And the clerestories towards the north, the south-north, or the clerestories, these were high up windows, often over church aisles, so kind of like relating to Sir Topas, Feste being Sir Topas there, or apparently rather like the original stage at Middle Temple, which was one of the Inns of Court. Apparently that did actually have those windows, so it could have been a reference to what was happening in the room. Again, if it was, reminding the audience that they are here watching this play and that they are, making a decision to be involved in this action by being there. Okay, and he says that these windows are as lustrous as ebony, of course, which is very dark wood. And of course, that's not clear at all. So this continues back and forth, tormenting Malvolio about the darkness. And then Malvolio begs, "Please ask me any question. Ask me a constant question." Okay, so a logical question. And this is in order so that he can prove his reason. So Feste asks this question about Pythagoras, which is reference to a theory about souls. You can look in your Arden edition for the explanation of this. Always worth checking what they're saying as well. And Feste says, "Well, what do you think of this opinion?" And Malvolio gets the right answer. But what he doesn't realise is that by saying this, he's led himself to this joke here about Feste saying, "Well, I might be fearful to kill a woodcock in case I'm killing your grandma again." Okay, so it doesn't matter what Malvolio does that seems logical. Feste turns all the logic on its head here and here with the darkness, meaning that Malvolio can't get out and can't prove himself in this situation. It's constant torment. And then he leaves, he doesn't leave the stage, he just moves away and moves to Mariah and Sir Toby, who are also still on stage, presumably out of Malvolio's hearing, to be congratulated by them on his gulling of Malvolio at this stage. And then So Toby sends him, and this is where Mariah mentions you didn't need the beard or the gown. You know, obviously he play acted with his voice more than likely, but it's all the more fun to watch. And so Toby says here to go again and torment him further in thine own voice. So now is fast day, and come back and tell me how it is, how he is. And he says, I would we were rid of this knavery. And what he means is the trickery, like, oh God, this trick is done now. We've gone too far. Maybe he's even admitting that. But what he's worried about is that when Olivia finds out, she's already upset with him. She's going to be upset even further. Okay, so really the main ideas going on here is this idea about spectatorship and audience. So we have a lot of knowledge in this play that characters don't have. And in this part, we have this kind of kinship. Well, we're participants in this trick, and we have this kind of kinship with Mariah and Sir Toby. But the question is, how do you feel about that? Having watched it, having read it, having seen different versions, how do you feel about being in on this joke when it's gotten to this stage?